Although my mother's cancer returned 6 months prior to the day I was fired from Novatech, I realized how cruel success could be when I stood in Marcus Sterling's corner office and watched him sneer at my requests for flexible hours to manage her treatments. Let me get this straight. David Marcus leaned back in his Italian leather chair. Do you think Novatech became a billion-dollar company by taking care of everyone's personal issues? I stood my ground for 5 years as the head of his R&D department, which gave me the confidence to speak up. I delivered every project ahead of schedule, I can work remotely when necessary, and my team supports me. The custom suit is probably worth more than my yearly salary. The Manhattan skyline stretches out behind him through floor-to-ceiling windows, providing the ideal backdrop for his power play on his desk. Business magazines featured his face under headlines like Tech's Youngest Billionaire and the New CEO. Your team, he interrupted me with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Let's be clear, they're my team. Everything here is mine. The threat hung between us as Marcus straightened his tie and said, Your mother's health issues are not Novatech's concern if you can't maintain normal working hours. I'll find someone who can. King of Silicon Valley, I just need 3 months. I tried again, but the doctors said that this round of treatment is crucial and I need employees who put this company first. When I got this job at Novatech, Marcus's smile was as sharp as a knife. I guess you'll have to find someone else, I said quietly. My dad worked 2 jobs to pay for engineering school after he passed away. She never missed a science fair or graduation, even when she was exhausted. Your personal belongings will be shipped to. I caught a glimpse of the presentation slides on the main screen for Quantum $2 as he turned to his computer and dismissed me. Oh, and David, don't expect a reference. A security guard led me through the open office past startled coworkers and muttered conversations. Marcus was unaware of the $3 billion transaction with Tech Corp Industries, yet that merger was going to be his worst nightmare because I had been quietly creating something of my own while he was busy building his empire on the backs of overworked staff. The idea had struck during those long hospital nights during Mom's initial cancer diagnosis, when I watched the medical equipment struggle to communicate across various systems. After 2 years of working on it in my free time, I realized there had to be a better way after witnessing nurses waste valuable time on compatibility problems. The result was a groundbreaking quantum computing protocol that could seamlessly integrate any technological system, regardless of manufacturer or operating system, making it the ultimate universal translator for the digital age. Novatech's contracts included the typical clause asserting ownership of any innovation created with company resources, but I hadn't used any of them. All of the code had been written on my own laptop, and all tests had been conducted on servers I had constructed in my garage. 3 months ago, shortly after my mother's cancer returned, I discreetly filed the patents under my own name, the same patents that were part of Novatech's merger. Walking out of the Novatech building for the last time, I took out my phone and made 2 calls, one to my old college flatmate, who is now a partner at Silicon Valley's top tech law firm, Michael I., and the other to Dr. Sarah, Chen's mom's oncologist, who was upgrading her care package to the hospital's premium suite. The following morning, while I was sitting with Mom during her treatment, my phone buzzed with breaking news alerts about the mysterious PTN LG3TN a TCHCO or PMEO Gor Wall Street. Marcus was likely drotting the company-wide email about my departure through the glass walls, remembering that patent portfolio we filed. I believe it's time to make it public. $2 QV Mom, who is always observant despite her illness, looked up from her magazine and saw something fascinating on your phone, honey. I grinned and took her hand, but it was just some business news and nothing as significant as being here with you. But we both understood that this was only the beginning. Marcus Sterling was going to learn an important lesson about what matters in life, and it wasn't about his magazine covers or corner office. Sometimes the worst day of your life leads to something amazing, and sometimes choosing love over power leads to both of you for weeks. I watched Marcus Sterling's empire begin to fall apart in a haze of hospital visits, Hent meetings, and increasingly frantic news updates about Novatech's collapsing merger plans from my mom's opulent hospital suite. Tech Corp demanded answers on integration protocol, and Novatech faced shareholder revolt over merger concerns regarding Sterling's $2. Despite the aggressive treatments, Mom's keen eyes studied me over her breakfast tray one morning. Despite the aggressive treatments, she hadn't lost her sharp insight. In fact, I smiled and put my laptop aside, thinking that I had finally found my real job. My firm buzzed Michael, my patent attorney, calling with the $3 billion dream deal on Monday. You don't look very upset for someone who just lost their job. He informed David that everything is in disarray there and that Sterling has been attending emergency board meetings for 3 days. Straight Tech Corp is threatening to withdraw unless Novitech can ensure system integration within 6 months, which they cannot do without my protocol, which I completed precisely. Their internal team claims that it would take years to create something similar. I looked at my mother sleeping after taking her morning meds. They hadn't yet figured out who owns the patents, but they're getting close. Sterling's lawyers have been searching through the patent office filings, and it's only a matter of time, as if on cue, until they find the answers that shareholders are demanding. My former deputy at Novitech's R&D department, David's phone lit up with another call at 9 o'clock. She whispered urgently, "Sterling is on the warpath." He had just fired 3 people for disloyalty because they suggested finding the patent holder rather than trying to create a new protocol from scratch. How is the team afraid and overworked? He has everyone working 16-hour days trying to replicate. When billions were at stake, people like Marcus Sterling hadn't built their empires by playing nice. Instead, they frequently decided that rules were for others. That evening, unusual activity alerts began. Your work, but David hesitated. There's something else. I saw him on the phone with someone about alternative acquisition methods, and he sounded desperate. I thanked her and hung up. Someone had attempted to enter my garage, where my development servers were kept, and they were becoming careless, Michael said when I called him. I've documented everything, but David, you need to be careful. Sterling's not going to take this lying down. He was correct, and the following morning an IRS routine audit showed up at my door by the afternoon. Calls about my troubling behavior were coming in from college acquaintances, and a reporter even visited N's hospital room to inquire about my difficult childhood. Classic intimidation techniques, Michael told me they were trying to coerce me into disclosing myself, but the good news was that it meant they were desperate. 3 days later, Mom's doctor called me into her office looking for. Concerned about a problem with the insurance, Dr. Chen explained that all of your mother's premium care authorizations had been revoked in some way. They are stating that she must switch to standard care right away. My hands clenched around Sterling, but I stood up and said, "I'm sorry, don't change anything about her care. I'll handle the bills directly." It was obvious that he could harm me by walking back to Mom's room with the people I loved. I decided it was time to stop playing defense, so I called him. Recall the press package we prepared, and tomorrow morning release it all. Are you sure? Once we do this, I'm sure. Michael also made sure that every major business news outlet received the video of Sterling firing me. The next morning, as Mom and I watched the sunrise from her hospital window, the security cameras had excellent audio. However, my phone burst with alerts. The TC GA engineer was notified as Kate, beloved Stolf at mistake, full vio of confrontation, and oh no TC HPVL 40%. Mom picked up her tablet. You didn't have to give up your job for me. I didn't give up anything. I just finally realized what you've always taught me. True success isn't about corner offices or magazine covers. I took her hand, part of it, and the other part is your latest scan results. The treatment's working. Mom's tears filled her eyes. It's about doing the right thing even when it's difficult. My phone buzzed again, and I saw a message from Na Sterling saying that he had called an all-hands emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. He had instructed all department heads, including former employees David, to attend. I think this is it. I squeezed my mother's hand and told her to get some rest because I have a meeting tomorrow. She smiled, but she reminded me that revenge isn't. The usual buzz of activity this morning was replaced by tense silence. Every screen showed the same news, Novitech stock and freefall, but instead of destroying others, it was about building something better. I finished our old saying, "I know, Mom, and that's exactly what I plan to do." Novitech's lobby looked exactly like I remembered, with all the chrome and glass and carefully cultivated power. As the merger collapsed, security immediately recognized me. Mr. Wilson, the guard, nodded graciously, removing any hint of his former contemptuous demeanor. The board was waiting in the big conference room, and I looked at my watch at 8:57 a.m. exactly on schedule. As I walked in, the conference room fell silent. I saw familiar faces lining both sides of the enormous table, including department heads, board members, and significant investors. Marcus Sterling sat at the head, his flawless exterior cracking around the edges, dark circles shadowing his eyes, his designer suit slightly rumpled. David forced a smile, saying, "Thank you for coming. I believe we have some things to discuss. Do we?" The video of my termination went viral, and Sterling's heartless dismissal of my ailing mother became a symbol of toxic corporate culture. I thought that Novatech wasn't concerned with personal issues, so I put my laptop on the table and sat down. "The past is the past," Sterling said dismissively, waving his hand. "We're here to talk business, your integration." I opened my laptop and saw that the patents are registered to me personally. "Your lawyers have already verified that I wrote all of the code on my own time, using my own resources." Then, I pulled up a document on the main screen that actually contained terms. Clearly, there has been a misunderstanding regarding ownership. Second, I added, "The company will implement strict work-life balance policies. There will be no more 80-hour work weeks or vacation shaming." This is absurd. First, Sterling's fake smile faltered. Next, Novatech will create a comprehensive healthcare fund for all employees and their families, with full coverage and no exceptions. I tapped my laptop to bring up another screen, but you can't prove it. To play social justice warrior third, I met his glare steadily. "You resign as CEO effective immediately." The room erupted in chaos, and Sterling's face turned purple. "How dare you? How dare I?" I stood up slowly. "You tried to intimidate me by targeting my mother's medical care and even sent people to break into my house." The board chairman cleared his throat, saying, "I built this company." "No," I corrected quietly. "You built an empire on other people's money. Prove everything, including your insider trading from the previous quarter, your offshore accounts, and those intriguing emails about alternative acquisition methods." The true Novatech was created by engineers who put in extra hours, developers who missed their children's birthdays, and individuals like me who felt that something worthwhile should be created. I went to the board and spoke directly. And my integration protocol with it is revolutionary with it. Without it, the company will lose. Then I finished. But there's one more thing I pulled up. A press release announcing Novatech's new charitable initiative, the Grace Wilson Memorial Foundation, named for my mother and dedicated to helping families facing medical crisis. "You're crazy, Sterling. You will probably face a shareholder revolt." The chairman nodded gravely. "Your terms, Mr. Wilson, are non-negotiable." The shareholders will never truly hear a new voice, but James Chen, our largest investor, spoke up. The shareholders had already voted for Mr. Sterling. The board had lost faith in your ability to lead, and we had accepted Mr. Wilson's terms. What followed was a flurry of legal documents and signatures from new people, and Marcus Sterling was escorted out of the building with his empire in ruins. By evening, Novatech's stock had leveled off as the markets reacted to the changes that had been announced. A week later, I stood in N's hospital room and watched her read the news coverage about Nova's revolutionary new direction. She read aloud that former R&D head David Wilson had been named CEO, and my son was named acting CEO. I made the necessary corrections until we implemented the changes, and then I'm leaving. Returning to R&D, where the real work takes place, she grinned with knowledge, and I took her hand. "The foundation is already helping 3 families pay for their cancer treatments, and soon it will be assisting hundreds. Your father and mother would be extremely proud." She squeezed my fingers, not because of the success, which is amazing, but because of how you did it. My phone buzzed with a message from a company about the merger negotiations. Tech Corp was excited about the new direction. The deal would go through bigger than ever, Mom thought. I learned from the best, and I smiled. "How are you feeling every day?" "The doctors are very optimistic." As I looked out at the sunset painting the city skyline, I considered all that had changed. Novatech was changing from a burnout factory to a model of corporate responsibility, meaning that families like mine wouldn't have to choose between work and taking care of their loved ones. Instead of controlling others, lift them up to build something lasting. Marcus Sterling was somewhere learning that real leadership isn't about magazine covers and corner offices. "By the way," Mom added casually, "when do you plan to tell them about your new quantum encryption protocol?" I smiled because Mom still knew me better than anyone, one revolution at a time. "For now, let's focus on getting you better after all I squeeze," I said. "Her family comes first." Years later, people would study the Novatech transformation as a business success, analyzing timing, strategy, and exit, but they would miss the most crucial lesson. Sometimes the greatest victories come from turning your enemy's weapons into healing tools rather than destroying them. Power, you end up transforming not just a business, but an entire industry. As for myself, I still occasionally work late, But now I do it voluntarily, generally coming up with new ideas to improve the world one innovation at a time since that's what true success looks like.